The first big domino this offseason is about to fall, and it's Amari Cooper. Last year, he was the highest paid wide receiver in the NFL, and now he's looking for a new home, and it's not going to be in Dallas. The biggest reason for cutting Amari Cooper is obvious. Money. The Cowboys thought through his big $100 million deal they gave him 2 seasons ago, and they essentially gave themselves an out if they wanted to take it. So if he does get cut, he's only going to count for $6 million of dead cap instead of the $22 million he would usually count for. And Dallas really does need that space. They have a lot of guys that they need to make some decisions on, and they're expected to be $21 million over the cap. On defense, Randy Gregory, Leighton Vander Esch, and Jaron Kearse are all up for new deals, and Dalton Schultz is the big name on offense with a lot of questions surrounding him. Money is the biggest issue, but I do have a hard time believing that Dallas would move on from Cooper if they didn't think that they had a better guy at the wide receiver position on the roster, and that is CeeDee Lamb. The Cowboys took him in the first round 2 years ago for a reason, and last year he was the number 1 target for Dak Prescott. He essentially pushed Amari Cooper out of town. This is really going to shake up the Cowboys wide receiver room. It's going to look completely different from the last handful of years. You already have Michael Gallup, who he did tear his ACL last year and didn't really play, but you also have Gallup and Cedric Wilson, and now you have Amari Cooper. It's going to be a completely different room, and that's going to be something big that Dallas is going to have to address this offseason. But cutting Cooper just saves so much money, and he's not playing like he's worth $22 million. I think it is absolutely the right move. If I was in the same shoes as Dallas, I think this one's a no-brainer. Amari Cooper is the highest paid wide receiver in the NFL, and it's really just not worth that money if you have a guy like CeeDee Lamb. And CeeDee Lamb is so good. He came in and has been better than Amari Cooper from the second he got into Dallas. And last year, without a doubt, he was the number 1 wide receiver. Amari Cooper got traded for a first-round pick from Oakland, came in, got a huge contract from Dallas, and essentially got replaced immediately by a rookie in CeeDee Lamb. I mean, that's how good CeeDee Lamb is. And without a doubt, he is one of the biggest reasons why Amari Cooper is set looking for a new job this offseason. Dallas has a ton of questions that they need to figure out, especially a lot on the defensive side. They're going to have a lot of questions on the offensive side now, really trying to figure out their targets. Dalton Schultz is a huge one. I mean, I don't know who, other than CeeDee Lamb, I have no idea who Dak Prescott is going to be throwing the ball to next year. So that's going to take a while to really figure out. Those are the big questions for Dallas, and there's a lot of them, but I want to touch a lot on Amari Cooper and where Amari Cooper could potentially end up. And I think there are a lot of options. I can think of at least 8 to 10 places that do kind of make sense, and a lot of it is Amari Cooper is a very good veteran wide receiver, and he's going to be perfect for any team that has a young quarterback that they're trying to get him set with. And I think the Jets and the Dolphins are 2 really good examples in the AFC East there. Zach Wilson is obviously going into his 2nd season. He kind of had a rough outing last year. Obviously, he plays for the Jets, so it's not very surprising. But they really do need to get him a guy. They went out and paid money for Corey Davis, and Corey Davis is a solid player, but he's not Amari Cooper. If you can get a guy like Amari Cooper in, that could really help. For the Dolphins, I think Tua Tagovailoa, he could really benefit from Amari Cooper. I love Jalen Waddle. I think Jalen Waddle's a future star, but he's not exactly your prototypical outside wide receiver like Amari Cooper is. Waddle's going to be used in a lot of different other ways, so I think you can bring in a guy like Cooper, have him one, and I think he can actually mesh pretty well with Waddle instead of kind of going back and forth. There are definitely 3 teams on my mind that are losing a piece that are going to be out looking for a wide receiver. I think the Chargers are one of those. Mike Williams is probably going to get paid a lot of money this offseason, maybe that I probably wouldn't pay him. So I think Williams is probably going to go elsewhere away from LA. And so that kind of opens the door to the Chargers needing to go after another wide receiver. Of course, they're going to have Keenan Allen, so do they want to 100% commit to going after a guy like Amari Cooper? That's going to be the big question, but I do think that's a relatively good option, especially with Justin Herbert coming up on his 3rd year in the league. Plus, the Chicago Bears, Justin Fields coming into his 2nd year in the league. They kind of basically have an entire new front office, entire new coaching staff, and I think they're really going to try to commit to Justin Fields, and right now they don't have another one wide receiver. They're going to let Allen Robinson walk. They franchise tagged him last year. He wasn't worth the money. He only had like 400 yards yards. He wasn't very good. And so now you really need to find a number one, especially when you have a young guy like Fields, and Amari Cooper could definitely go there. And I think that might actually be the best spot and most realistic spot for Amari Cooper other than one team. I don't see it happening, but I do want to touch on the Colts. I do think the Colts aren't probably the most likely spot for Amari Cooper, but could definitely happen. They still have a lot of questions, especially at quarterback, that they're going to have to figure out first, and they do already have Michael Pittman, but I think that Amari Cooper could be a huge piece if they tried to bring him in, but with T.Y. Hilton retiring, they are going to have to fill a big void this offseason. Finally, I want to touch on the two teams that are obviously talked the most about on J&D Productions, which is my team, Washington, and Darren's team, New England. 2 years ago, Washington offered Amari Cooper $120 million. It was more money than Dallas was offering him in the offseason, and he decided to stay put with the Cowboys instead of going to Washington. And now, looking back, that's been brought up, would Washington want to go after? And I think it's a possibility, but I don't think it's going to happen. Washington knows that they need to pay Terry McLaurin coming up. I would rather have Terry McLaurin than Amari Cooper right now at the stages of both of their careers. And so I don't think Washington is really going to make a push for Amari Cooper. I think they're a little more worried about quarterback right now. I think that Washington, that ship probably sailed 2 years ago. Finally, the team that I think makes the most sense, and that's the New England Patriots. They've been trying to find that guy. They gave Nelson Aguilar a lot of money, and it really wasn't what they expected. They swung and missed on N'Keal Harry in the draft. They've paid a lot of money to tight ends like Jonnu Smith and Hunter Henry. I think that Bill Belichick has been looking for that number one wide receiver for a long time. And now that you have a rookie quarterback in Mac Jones, you really, really, really need to hone in and find that number one wide receiver. Because last year, New England was very good. They have a very good defense. They have a solid line. They're just a good team overall. But the big piece that they are missing are those receiving threats. And they have some good guys in the building, but none of them would touch Amari Cooper. And so I think that Bill Belichick will take a swing on Amari Cooper, and I think that's by far the most likely landing spot for Amari Cooper this offseason. The NFL offseason is just getting underway, and there's going to be a lot of other pieces and drama that are going to happen, and for Amari Cooper, he's just kind of the first one to come out, and now he has to go and try to find his new home, and it's just not going to be with the Cowboys.